Hi guys, DIY Jeff here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to perform a coolant flush on your vehicle. Welcome to DIY Jeff, where in the paraphrased words of Abraham Lincoln, I'm not going to lie to you. To demonstrate, I'll be doing a flush on my 2004 Honda Odyssey, but the steps and procedures are fairly similar for most vehicles. Before starting this project, make sure you consult your owner's manual to find out what type of coolant your vehicle uses, because some vehicles do use different types of coolant. And when performing the flush part of the coolant change, you'll want to be sure to have some distilled water on hand, probably a couple gallons. You may also need a small rubber hose if you're able to drain the backside of the engine block like I will show you on my 2004 Honda Odyssey. But again, consult your owner's manual, your vehicle may be a little different. Some forums and videos show only changing out the coolant in the radiator itself. But today I'm going to be showing you, at least on my vehicle, how you can drain the coolant out of the engine block as well. That way we'll get as much of the old coolant out and as much of the new coolant in as we can to get a much cleaner flush. So let's get started. Before jacking up the front end, chalk the back wheels first. On my Odyssey, there's a jacking point under the center of the vehicle's front end. Always make sure you jack the vehicle by its frame. Place a jack stand just behind each front wheel. There's an indentation made just for a jack stand. Lower the vehicle onto the jack stands. Before getting under a vehicle, I like to give it a firm push to make sure it doesn't move. Pull the hood release. Lift up the hood by slightly lifting and pressing up on the latch release. To hold the hood up, set the retaining rod in the hole as shown. You'll need a large collection bin to collect the old coolant. The radiator drain plug on my Odyssey is located just left of center on the passenger side. A good reference point is locating the two bolts I'm showing and finding the circular cutout just to the left. Here's a better look at it with light on it. Going straight up, you can see the white plastic wing bolt drain plug. Before backing out the drain plug, remove the radiator cap, making sure the engine is cool first. Looking at the drain hole from the front of the car, I'm pointing out its location. Because the drain bolt is in such a location that makes getting a good grip on it near impossible, it's difficult to open. So I suggest using a flathead screwdriver and a hammer to loosen it counterclockwise. Then you can easily loosen it the rest of the way by hand until it starts to drain. My car had been sitting a while, so just take care that the coolant may be hot if you just ran it. It can take 8 to 10 minutes to drain completely, so let it drain all the way until it stops dripping. Once done, tighten the drain plug, but not overly tight. Here I'm draining the coolant into a container for recycling. This is a crude way of doing it, but I needed something to hold the collection container sturdy since I didn't have a second pair of hands. And I didn't have any large containers, so I made do with what I had. This stuff is highly toxic if ingested. To make matters worse, I'm told it has a sweet taste, so please be responsible and keep it away from children and animals. Now we'll drain the small amount of coolant in the engine block. Here's a diagram from the service manual pointing out the drain bolt and showing attaching a rubber hose in order to drain the coolant down into a collection container. Otherwise, it would make a big mess. Here's a look at the drain bolt from underneath the vehicle. It's the bolt in the bottom left center of the screen with the blue tip on it. There's two nuts. The first one is the big one that's brass colored and against the engine block. Don't loosen that one. Towards the blue tip, there's a smaller 12mm nut. You loosen it by turning it counterclockwise. I found using a socket was the easiest to loosen it. Next, put the hose on the end quickly, since once it's loosened just slightly, coolant will start flowing. It only takes a couple of minutes to drain. Once done, remove the hose and retighten the nut. Now drain the overflow reservoir. Just unscrew the cap and the reservoir slides out easily, making emptying it a breeze. While out, you might as well just clean it. It only takes a minute, and you just use a rag and some degreaser. Installation is just as simple. Screw the cap on and slide it back in its bracket. Now it's time to perform the flush. Following the manufacturer's recommendations, only use distilled water as any other water can be corrosive to the system. You can make your own distilled water by boiling it, which is what I did. After all, I am a DIY kind of guy. There is a handy tool I don't own, which is made for filling radiators and simplifies the process considerably. I'll put a link to one down in the description below. Fill the radiator all the way to the top. It's not a big deal if it overflows a little. It's only water. Once full, put the radiator cap back on. Then start the vehicle and bring the RPMs up to 1500 and hold it for 5 minutes. Using a rag for protection against boiling water, slowly open the radiator cap and check the fluid level. You should have to add a little water. Again, no big deal if it overflows. Reinstall the radiator cap. Now turn the front and rear temperature knobs all the way to the coldest setting. Bring the engine RPMs up to 1500 for 5 minutes. This will help to ensure the thermostat opens to release coolant into the engine. Check the coolant level and fill if needed. Again, be careful since the water that was added will be very hot. Since the radiator was still full, I'm going to drain the system now. If you do need to add some water, then I suggest repeating the previous steps until you no longer need to add water.
Even though I only added water, you can see that there's still coolant in the system. This is why it's important to flush the system. The radiator and engine block only account for about 2/3 of the total coolant. There's still coolant in all the hoses. I'm repeating the exact same drainage steps I previously showed, draining the radiator and the engine block. Make sure you have your hose ready to go because once the nut loosens just a little, it will start dripping. Pull the hose and tighten the nut. Here's a comparison of the first drain on the left with the second drain on the right. This is the coolant from both times I drained. I had purchased standard antifreeze a couple months back in preparation for flushing the system, but this was before I had checked the owner's manual, not knowing different makes require different coolants. While much more expensive than the standard non-diluted bottle of generic antifreeze I got for $10, Honda's diluted bottle costs $25 a bottle and is much harder to find in the store. I'll put a link to where I purchased it in the description below. So with the system drained, it's time to add the antifreeze. If you really wanted to flush the system completely, you could use some distilled water and repeat the flush 2 to 3 more times until only water came out when drained. But I'm satisfied with just the one flush. The radiator will hold a little more than 1 bottle worth of antifreeze, so you won't need to worry about overflowing with the first bottle. To avoid overfilling and making a mess, with the second bottle, just put in a little bit at a time and then check the level. Put the cap back on and start the vehicle, bringing the RPMs up to 1500 for 5 minutes. Check the fluid level. In my case, it's still full, but you may need to add some. Start the engine back up and turn the temperature dials to cold, and then run the RPMs at 1500 again for 5 minutes. Check the level again and add coolant if needed. Remember to add the coolant in small amounts to avoid overflowing. Cap it off, except this time repeat the steps but turn the temperature dial all the way to hot. Recheck and add coolant if needed. Keep repeating this process until the radiator stays full. The last step is to add coolant to the overflow reservoir and bring the level to halfway between minimum and maximum. That's it. That's all there is to it. Lower the hood, raise the vehicle with the jack, remove the jack stands, lower the vehicle, and remove the wheel chocks. This is what I had when I consolidated all the fluids into the largest containers I had.
I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed. Also, if you do subscribe, click the bell icon and you'll get notified every time I upload a new video.
DIY Jeff, a YouTube channel where I'm not gonna lie to you.